Now, I think the UK are moving pretty fast on this one, probably faster than other countries. So the new Department for Education Standards for AI in Education explicitly address some of these issues. And I think that education policy experts are going to be asking for more of that in other countries. We'll come on to the new UK standards.
Yeah, I'd like to pick that up a bit later as well, because I was in the UK when that was released. And I picked up a lot of chatter on LinkedIn when I was away in the UK on that, and it was really interesting. It's quite polarizing. Did you get your teeth into it? What's a summary from your view for the educators listening?
Okay, so these standards were issued in January, and they are standards that the expectation is any AI deployed in education by an institution or a system conforms to these standards.
Yeah.
My first take is nothing currently conforms to these standards.
Yeah.
So first of all, they looked at things like, let's make sure systems are safe. So does it have content filtering in it? Does it have monitoring, tracking, and alerting? So they talked about recording all the prompts, all the responses, and then alerting a local supervisor or admin where somebody tries to search for or have an inappropriate conversation with AI. So I don't think anything really does that just yet.
It's just on that though, because that is something that, like, I know you've done some stuff like this as well, and some of the other folks, like Matt was doing some stuff as well. And it is like my general view on this personally, and I know I'm biased to the Microsoft side on it, but there's a lot of AI out there which doesn't have governance and controls.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm having conversations with large systems and things, and the stuff we've done with Dan Hart and all of that, or stuff any companies are doing, I'm trying to be agnostic about whether the Microsoft stuff, and to a certain extent some of the Google stuff, is kind of enterprisey. So that does have filtering and monitoring controls. Whereas when people are developing their own things, you've got to build that in. So like Prem and the team with C Chat, they've had to develop their own filtering and management and control in there. So I think it's the right thing to put in, the right spirit of things to put in, but it's gonna a bit like, what's the bloody horrible ST4S, I think it's called, in Australia, the Safer Technologies for Schools. It's a way to try to monitor and manage applications for education to make sure that they conform to certain privacy, and which is it's good in spirit, but very difficult to implement.
And that's exactly right. So they've created requirements that AI will actively monitor conversations for signs of learner distress and direct students to human support when it's needed, and create alerts for the institution, and manage the risk of emotional and social development. So, all of that, every person that would look at that would probably have a different definition of what that means.
Yeah.
What does learner distress mean? Is it, I've got this deadline and I can't get there and I've got to do it? Or is it some of the darker things? They also said, make sure that AI isn't acting as a cognitive substitute. So it's got to support rather than interfere with the learning process.
Yeah.
And the system should generate regular reports on cognitive offloading. Again, it's great to say that as a theory, but then how do you do that in practice?
Yeah. There was also in there talking about the practical side. There was one of the things in there was about full content moderation, regardless of the device used, including bring your own device and smartphone. Schools already do bring your own device, and at universities, you bring your own personal device in, you connect up to the systems. Then the questions that I'm having as well from schools and things is about, well, where does that duty of care lie? Because you've got this barrier then. If you're supposed to be looking at this in BYOD and smartphones, it's well, how do we manage kids' smartphone use at an educational institution level? It becomes quite tricky.
And then they also go on to say that they don't want AI in education to use persuasive or exploitative designs. So, it's supportive, not addictive. And I kind of think back to, gosh, I've said in the past, wouldn't it be great if learning was as addictive as Netflix? And so, again, there's a very fine line about how you do that, because surely if we can get students more engaged in learning, and perhaps that does use persuasive or exploitative design in order to trick them into learning. I remember that phrase from a case study I filmed in the UK years ago. So they've gone into a lot of depth around that, a lot of depth about making sure that we don't make AI seem more human. I really wish this phrase could be something shorter. The anthropomorphize. Every time I get that
Yeah.
wrong, yeah. And so they talk about not doing that. And I got a little worried about that because they've laid out some very specific rules, like the AI can't have names, it can't have descriptions or avatars or characters that could give an impression of personhood or identity or agency. But won't that risk having maybe disengaged learning experiences? Because, young children get engaged in learning through Bluey and Peppa Pig and the Teletubbies.
Yeah.
But that is explicitly banned in
And if
the
you're using it
guidelines.
to, like, be a historical figure or something like that, and again, this is a very good point because if you actually specify, you super prompts, don't you, in a lot of the tools. So you'd say, "Look,
Yeah.
I'm interested in cars and guitars and whatever, whatever." And then it gives you that personalized response, when you say, "Well, I'm struggling with ratio." Well, let me talk to you about ratio
Mm.
in context of like a guitar string or whatever. And it gives you that personalization is really important. So you're right. It's very difficult balance there. And
Yeah.
and the more you push it away, and it's always going to be the case, isn't it? The more locked down and filtered a tool is going to become, then the less useful it might become.
And so, the example you just gave, I could create a digital Shakespeare. That's okay, but it can only be short term, like for delivery of a class or two. It's not intended that you give a personality to the AI long term. And yet I think
Right.
about the bots I engage with on websites for companies where they do try and stick a personality onto it. In fact, Copilot is building a personality, isn't it? The consumer Copilot has got that little bubbly character,
Yeah. We,
which
yeah.
is designed to engage. So my worry is if the guidance then creates education AI as the dull, grey, boring one, then students will not use it outside the classroom. They'll use it when they're told they have to. And when they go home, they'll go and use the friendly, helpful one.
Yeah.
And as part of that, they've also banned, and they explicitly said this, they've banned AI in education that is sycophantic or flattering,
Right.
which makes me sad because I am so pleased when GPT tells me that my ideas are brilliant. And so,
Yeah.
while I can understand each of the individual rules, if you over apply all of those rules, you do end up with the dull AI. And great teachers make learning engaging and interactive for their students. And if we're saying, yes, but we don't want AI to give engaging, interactive experience for students that they might become attached to, we're going to put the line in the right place.
One thing this does do as well, and I'm not sure how it applies in Australian areas, but in schools in Australia, in the UK, they've got a safeguarding lead. So there are safeguarding leads in schools in Australia as well. But there is a element to which does connect it in. It says it requires the institution to make sure that the designated safety lead, a safeguarding lead, and the contact details, and they are all connected in to any implementation of AI tools. So you're bringing in other people other than the IT team when you're thinking about the safeguarding
Yeah.
of these tools. Just putting other people on the hook, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Don't get me wrong. I think we need this. I think the challenge is it's a very strict set of rules that if you over interpret them, you end up maybe not going in the right direction. And
yeah,
so it's about doing the right thing and heading in the right direction, because the reality is we're still developing things as we go.
yeah, there are things you pick away. There's things about saying that you need a multi-factor authentication with accounts, which is good, but schools very rarely do that, and sometimes they ban mobile phones. So but it is good. I really like the spirit of this. I think it's pretty robust, and there are bits in there. Obviously, there are to implement, and there's bits that might feel draconian, but I think this is where it should land because we are going into this area now where there's a lot of people making AI products and tools for the classroom, and they don't have a lot of these things in there, especially around governance and compliance. And that should be essential, really.
Yeah. And so I guess if you're outside of the UK, maybe this is a good pick and mix list to look at it and go, oh, do you know, you're right. We shouldn't make our AI seem like a human, but we do want to have some personality. And then the bits around safeguarding. Can you see if your AI that you are giving to your students in a school is having a conversation with a distressed student, can you get an alert on that?
Yeah.
And is your AI supplier a partner in making that experience right or not? So don't get me wrong. I think there's some great stuff in here. I think it is quite a while to be able to get an AI to tick off all of these requirements. And, you know, they were dropped in January. I
Yeah.
don't know.
It was really, that's what I found weird, is it dropped in January, and that's when the schools are going back in the UK to term 2. The other good thing in this, they did link to other legislations as well. So it wasn't like just written on its own. They talked about GDPR, they talked about the EU right to erase your data. It talked about a whole heap of things around the ICO, lots of other standards as well, the Computer Misuse Act. So, you know, it wasn't trying to do it all. It was referring to other acts as well around standard data security areas, which is good.
Yeah, and it wasn't about putting brakes on, because at the same time they announced these standards, they also said, we are going to provide an AI tutor for disadvantaged children.
Yeah.
They put in England $23 million down for the tech industry and teachers to collaborate to create AI tutoring tools. And they have said that by the end of 2027, all disadvantaged students in years 9 to 11 will have an AI tutor available for them, funded by the government. And so what they want to do is encourage those experiments and start to surface what is good. And then in the UK, the definition of disadvantaged schools is children that qualify for free school meals. So in the UK, the model is, you know, if you have a very low income, you don't have to pay for lunch at school. That is funded by the government, and that's their definition of disadvantaged students. I had free school meals when I was at school, Dan, so I'm a disadvantaged student of history.
I don't think I ate. I was too busy being bullied, I think.
Okay, so just another thing that maybe links into all of this, because only some people I think are going to go down that route of looking at the UK things and thinking about it in their school outside of the UK.